I failed at caregiving until I learned this trick that I'm going to tell you about today. I've been a nurse for 30 years, and when I started out as a nursing assistant 32 years ago, we used cloth pads on the beds. And they worked okay. They were usually pretty old and raggedy because I worked in a facility, so I wasn't really very hot on them. So when I started 10 years ago, my own care home, I was so excited to find paper products because I thought, wow, this is great. When it gets dirty, I won't have to do any laundry. I'll just throw it away and it'll be gone from sight and I won't have to worry about it. But after a few months of using this product, I started to get pretty frustrated. You see, it tears really easy because it's pretty thin. And also, it's not big enough. Even the big size of these paper products aren't big enough to cover the whole bed. And so invariably what I would get is it would end up catching some of the stuff, but others of it would end up on the bed and I would end up having to change the beds. And that is a big time-consuming project when you are a caregiver, because not only do you have to change the sheets on the bed to the clean ones, then you've got to do the laundry, and then you've got to fold it, and you better hope that you have several sets of sheets if you don't have a good pad. I've had people that lived with me that moved around a lot in bed, and as a result, they ended up needing a bed change several times per day. Talk about frustrating. Are you a caregiver that's got that problem that just seems like the laundry just mounts and mounts? You've got 3 or 4 sets of sheets to wash every day because the pad just doesn't stay under them, or the pad itself is leaking, even though you've got briefs on them too? Yeah, this had to go, or the care home had to go. I didn't care which because I'd had enough. So, I have another use for this though. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. So I went back to the good old standard that I had used for years and years and years. Cloth pads were back on the beds, and that saved me a lot of laundry because they do capture the liquid better. The only problem with these is that they're invariably never in the right spot because they're just too small. Do you see how it doesn't really cover the whole bed? It covers part of the bed. The width is what I'm talking about, but it doesn't cover the whole thing. And so what happens is when the person goes to get up out of bed, they're sitting on the side of the bed, and you know, their mobility usually isn't the greatest. That's why they need help. And so they kind of slide off the edge of the bed and they get the side of the bed wet if their brief is wet. And that's not fun because now you're back to changing the sheets, all because the pad didn't capture what it was there for. There's nothing worse than to have a dry pad and wet sheets. Boy, I can't tell you how many times that has happened to me over the years, and I just want to pull my hair out and scream when that happens because I feel like that was what the pad was for. What? So one day I was surfing around on Amazon and I came across the product to fall in love with. And the first time I ordered only one of these because I thought I'll give it a try and see if it'll work. I now own about 20 of these suckers. So in the description, they list this pad to go the long direction. See, it is a very large pad. I'll just hold up the other one on it so that you can see the difference. I think my new pad is about 25 inches wide. So we've got all this extra. So they say to put it this way. I tell you what, I think that those people who wrote the description haven't ever been a caregiver, or they don't understand about these pads. These pads should be placed at the waist because they wick the moisture. So if you place the pad all the way up to their shoulders like the description shows, then if you get some wetness down here in the brief area, it's now going to wick up to their shoulders. Boy, that sucks. You go in there to change them and now they're all wet and you got to give them a bed bath and change their night clothes. Your bed's still dry, so that's the good news. The bad news is they themselves are wet. So what I do is I take this lovely large pad and I turn it and put it across the bed. And now it sits at their waist and down and covers the part of the bed that can get wet from a leaky brief. And then I take the extra width and I put it over the side of the bed. And that solves our problem from earlier, right? When they get up out of the bed and they slide down the edge a little, they're still on the pad. So just the pad is wet. No sheets wet. It's great. The other great thing about this pad is I use it to help move people around in the bed because people need help getting pulled up in bed or maybe they need help getting rolled. So I go over them and I pull on the pad and then I can put a pillow behind them and I'm not having to pull on their body parts. It hurts people when you have to pull on their body parts. And so instead, if you just use the pad, you're able to pull them back and forth. That's one of the best uses for this pad. Even people who don't have leakage or who are still continent, I still put these pads on their bed because of the use of being able to move them around in the bed. But honestly, I put this on everyone's bed that lives with me because I hate having to change sheets. And these bed pads have made it so that I rarely have to change sheets more than once a week just for their normal cleaning. Now remember, I told you I had a use for these disposable ones. If I have a patient that's on hospice, they usually get these for free. And so what I will do is take that disposable pad and go ahead and stick it on top of the cloth pad that I love. And that way, hopefully, if they have a leak, it'll go on the disposable one and I can just throw it away and not have to wash the big pad. But if it misses, I'm not sad because I've still got the good cloth pad underneath them and I don't have to worry about the bed ending up wet. So that's the great new thing combination that I use. I've been using it for about 8 years now and it has been a huge time saver. If you're a caregiver that's pulling your hair out, go ahead and order one of these or maybe several because you need one when you have the other one in the laundry, right? And if you are struggling with incontinence products, or even if you just want to know what the best thing is out there on the market, check out my other video. In this video, I talk about incontinent products. They have come a long way since I started out in nursing 30 years ago when we used to use cloth briefs. Now they have all different absorbencies. There's all different brands. When I started out with my care home 10 years ago, most of my residents just bought their things at Walmart or Walgreens or whatever was down the street. But now you can order them online and it's amazing the difference you can make in absorbency by buying the right product. So check out my video and I'll see you in that next video.